How's it going, guys? I'm going to try and make the most use of our time today, so I'm going to get right into the next, portion of our talk. And that would be the spread that I like to use. I've used this spread for years and years now. And it's been effective for us. So these two lures are rigger lines, and I like to have them 320 feet out, and then our two corners at about 200 feet. And this can vary. Basically what you want is for this lure not to ever have a chance of tangling your long lines. So these two, we don't want them to tangle these two. And then my fit line, I just eyeball it so it's, again, close enough under the loop of these lines that they don't tangle. And I like them at the same distance, and I'll actually measure out my line to 320 feet and then put a marker on there, either a Sharpie, or tie a piece of floss or a rubber band on there, so that the two lures are even. And also I've been taught that these two lures should be either the same lure or a real similar lure in size and weight. So for us, it's real easy. A lot of guys ask me this. I typically run a moke bullet and a moke invert, or I'll run a H1 bullet and an H1 invert, or two H1 bullets, and then here on the corners again, a moke invert, a moke bullet, or a H1 invert, H1 bullet. I could go H1, and then a moke here. And the thought behind that is, as the boat turns, your lures drop and rise at kind of the same rate, so that this lure should never ever be able to get over to here. Like if you got a heavy lure here, say you got like a H1 invert, and the wind's blowing from this direction hard, and you got, say, a 7-inch lure here, or something real light, and this guy's blowing across, and this guy doesn't get out of the way fast enough, and now that's where you get tangled. So same distance, relatively the same type of lure. A lot of my friends will run exact same style of lure in just different colors to help them avoid tangles. The rougher it is, the more you want to keep this structure. And so every boat is different, and this is just my ideal, or not my starting out spread for the day. And then also every day is a little different, right? So it might be calmer, super calm, or calmer on a certain day, and I'll bring these a little closer and maybe drop these back a little bit, because I can easily keep an eye on my spread and watch for tangles. And then also, if it's rougher, typically when it's calmer, you can choke everything up or go a little faster. And then when it's rougher, you want to let it out further and go slower. And then for me, this is almost considered like a bonus line. Like a lot of times I'll run something that I just want to watch how it runs. Say I'm trying something out and I want to see how the lure runs. I'll run it here, and I don't really consider, if I catch an ahi here, awesome. But I don't plan on it. And then these two as well. My main goal is to keep these guys out of the way of these guys for our boat. And then like for us over time, we started to notice like we changed the leg on our boat, and then we started to notice, hey, our corners, they're biting good now. So we shrunk our riggers closer to kind of, you got to find the area for your particular boat that bites well, and then squeeze your lure pattern into that area. And that's what we found with our boat. But even now, if I go a trip or two with a shrunken down spread and I ain't getting a bite, this is kind of my baseline. I'll always go back to this. Or also if it's really rough or rougher, I'll go back to this baseline. So find the zone on your boat, and then that's why I like to mark my stuff out, so that if I know, like for us, oh, the corner started biting, now they're at 200, okay, let me squeeze this in, I don't know, 80 feet, 50 feet, whatever, and maybe even squeeze these guys in and get the fish to bite closer to the boat. It's a little more of a down the line, and you're trying to get multiples and stuff like that. When you're starting out, you probably want to stick to something like this and just concentrate on getting the one fish. You only need, when you're starting out, you only need one to make your day. So also, if you're starting out, 5-6 lures is the maximum we pull on our boat. Just because our boat's not that big and we want to keep things simple. But when you're starting out, if you're running 6-7 lines when you're starting out and you get one bite here, now most of us fish with one other or maybe 2 other guys. You guys got to clear all these lines, put all this stuff away, get it out of your way, and then also fight the fish. And you newer to fishing, so your adrenaline is pumping. By the time you get to fighting your fish, your guys is wiped out already. There's been times when we were starting out, or guys come on the boat and they haven't fished a lot. By the time they crank all of these in, and then you start actually fighting the ahi, like you dry heaving already because your adrenaline is pumping so much. Yeah, so again, simplify. I always tell people who ask me, like, if you get 6 lines, sell one of your poles and get a good pair of binoculars. If you get 5 lines and you're starting out, you never catch an ahi yet, run 4 poles, sell the 5th pole, get yourself a good pair of binoculars. So figure out, this is a good baseline, but you gotta adjust it. Everybody's boat is different and every day is different. So and then as far as drag goes, don't quote me on this poundage, but I think we're somewhere only around 6 to 8 pounds of drag when the fish is striking. So for me, I like a single hand. You grab the line right above the reel and you can pull the line out with one hand and not this like double-handed. Oh. The reason why I like that is I like the fish to be able to, first of all, I like when the ahi bites, most times he doesn't turn and run right away like say a marlin would. A lot of times he'll just sit there and shake his head because he got the hook in his mouth, and he shakes his head, and then he turns and he runs. So what you hear is the fish will bite, the rigger will come down, doom, and then the reel will almost like just slowly peel off. Brrr, and that's the boat driving away from the fish. And then he shakes his head for long enough, and then he turns, and then he runs, and that's when the reel really starts screaming. If you got your drag super tight, when the fish is just sitting there and shaking his head, you can pull the hooks right out of his mouth. Or also, like, if the fish is running and your pole's like bouncing up and down like that, and then the thing come off on the run. We don't typically lose a lot of fish on the run. I would say a lot less than most guys, because we fish our strike drags pretty light. So then the fish will bite, shakes his head, he runs, and he rips a bunch of line out, which that's the downfall to our style of fishing. Our fish take a lot of line. But I want that, because then when the fish gets to the boat and it's time to leader him, he's a lot more worn out. So I let him run, and then once everything settles down, I got a guy on the pole actually fighting the fish. Then I'll have him smash the drag up to whatever it is, 20 pounds, basically real close to a lock drag. And then at that point, the fish is worn out from his big first run, and then we just crank him back in. So light drag to start, and then once the fish makes his big run, now you can smash the drag on him, and then basically just winch him back in. I learned that from the guy that taught me how to fish, and then I also, before, I used to try and get as much tuna information as possible. And if you know that guy Tread Barda, that's how he fished his drags as well, light at the start, and then he would basically say once the fish settles down, now you put the kill drag on them and you smash the drag and you crank them back in. So that's the way we do it to this day. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of go over the process when we do get a bite. So you're driving along, and one of the things I don't think I mentioned earlier is if you see guys stopping or getting bite, try and take note of the direction they were going when they got the bite. This season, for instance, we were fishing a day, and I started to notice, I started to notice that a lot of guys were getting bite going back up sea. And typically when I go back up sea, I go pretty fast, like 8.5 to 9 knots. But it was kind of late in the day, and I was like, oh, you know, maybe I should go up sea a little slower. And I did that, and I ended up getting my bites going up sea at like 7.5 knots instead of blasting up sea at like 8 to 9 knots. So take note of the direction the other boats are getting their bites. And then as soon as I don't do this as much anymore because I have a lot of stuff mapped out, but before, religiously, as soon as I got a bite, I'd reach over to my GPS and hit either man overboard or create a waypoint, and then do my business of fighting the fish. And then over time, say this is the 1,000 fathom line. Over time, what you'll get is, okay, one day I got a bite there, 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 and then again, I got bites there, and whatever's I got bites there. Over time, you'll have almost like a area mapped out of where over the years. Now this is over years and years. Like I think the GPS we have now is probably like at least 10 years old. Actually, we took the SIM card from our old boat and put it into the GPS on our new boat. But over time, you'll have areas mapped out. So like, let's say I got on bite here and I reached down and I pressed mark, and then oh shit, that ended up being a marlin. Little later on, I just go back and I delete it. But over time, you'll get an area of the coastline that you fish where the ahis typically like to congregate, and the reason for that is there's most likely some sort of structure underwater that's causing the bait to come up in the same areas year after year after year. So the reason why that will help you is, let's just say this is a new year and you're fishing this area, this is your zone, right? And maybe here, over here is a zone. And so you work this zone and it's one of those days where nothing's happening in that zone. And you come over here and you fish, so nothing look good over there either. Now I kind of look at my GPS and like, okay, well, I know this area right here, the fish tend to always be in that area. So I can pass through that zone. And, you know, maybe this zone is close enough, or maybe you get another zone right in here where maybe you never catch as many, but it's close by. So then you can go and kind of, that'll give you some extra places to run through on those days where the information you got isn't panning out and you kind of gotta hunt a little on your own, or again, over a few years, you'll start to map out the areas that the tunas typically come up in your area. Okay, so you're just starting out and you got your bite. Say you're driving along and the rigger comes down. Boom. Reach over, put your mark on your GPS, and then get your other lines cleared. Once you get more experience, you can drag that fish along and go for multiple fish, you know, 10 Mississippi or 15 Mississippi before you start clearing lines. But when you're starting out, the last thing you want is to have a multiple, because now you got to deal with crisscrossing lines and untangling, going over under with poles and stuff like that. So you got the bite, concentrate on that, getting that one fish in the boat. Have your guy clear all the other lines. As soon as I can start angling the boat down sea, I start to do that. And then once the guys, and from the moment the fish bites, I'll keep the boat pretty much at trolling speed and let the guys start clearing lines, and kind of as they clear the lines that might tangle, I'll start to angle the boat down sea, and then I'll start to, you know, once I he's been on long enough, like I think he's hooked good enough, I'll slow down a little bit, and then once the guys get the deck cleared up, I'll slow the boat down and angle down sea, and as soon as I can get somebody on the reel, I'll stop the boat. And then just let the guys fight. And how we like to do it is, I just have my boat if the swell and wind is coming this way, and then we got bit, let's say we got bit going in this angle, and then I end the boat up here. Once I got my guy on the reel, if the swell and stuff is going this way, I want the boat, depending how rough it is, if it's calm, I want the boat sideways like this. If it's rough, I'll kind of angle the boat more like this. And then I'll have my guy, at that point now the boat stopped, now you smash the drag. And now I have my guy just use the boat as the pull for if you're fighting a fish and you pull the reel back and you crank it down, right? You pull the pull back and crank it down. I'll have him just stand there, and as the boat rocks up, he waits, and as the boat starts to rock down, then I have him crank. The boat rocks up, and then I have him crank. I like to do it that way versus having one guy crank and the other guy handline the whole time, because if you use the second way, now you're wearing out two of your guys, right? So if you just use the rock of the boat, have one guy on the reel, he getting tired, okay, the next guy jump in, the first guy can rest. Your guys will be fresher when it comes time for the big battle, which is leadering, right? So get the boat into that angle and then smash the drag, and now crank the fish back up. Now typically, right, this is when the marker also helps you a lot too. So in that earlier scenario, the marker will come up and I know, okay, the Ahi's 320 feet away or 200 feet away right now. I can tell my guys, okay, get the gas ready, you know, if you know more your gloves on yet, get your gloves on. That's probably about the time that I put my gloves on. And then when the guys say, okay, actually a little before that, so the marker comes in and I know, okay, he getting close, I'll start to leg up the boat. And then once my guys say, okay, I see color and I'm comfortable with the position that the boat is in, I'll leg up on the boat. Well, now we have an inboard outboard, so the leg pretty much stays in the water. But even when we had an outboard, I leg up high enough that the motor can still get water, and then that way I don't have to turn the motor off, because every once in a while a fish will, we call them surfers, where they won't circle and they'll keep swimming, or you think it's Ahi the whole time, and then the last minute you find out, oh, that's a marlin. Now you gotta restart your boat and all of that. So I keep my boat running, but I lift up the leg, and then if something happens, all I gotta do is run upstairs, put the leg down, and put the boat back in gear. But at that point, right before color or right when you see color, lift the leg up and go to your final process of leadering and gaffing the fish. Actually, that's when they start right before color, or when they see color, that's when I have my second guy, or if it's just two of us, I'll actually start to handline the fish and let the other guy crank. And the reason for that is when the fish is closer to the boat like that and the boat's rocking and jerking, I can feel the fish and know when to pull and when to relax on the fish versus just using the pole. You get a better feel of what the fish is doing if you got hands on the line. When he's way out there, you don't really need to, because you got all that line out as kind of like your shock, right? The line can stretch and do what it needs to. But when the fish is close, now the line's a lot tighter. So now you got to be the guy who kind of feels the fish and then works them up, and then swivel to the tip of the pole, and then you can leader your fish. The debate between wrapping and pulling and pinching, you guys will work that out as you gain more experience. But you want the swivel right at the tip of the pole, because what you don't want is the swivel to be down here and the boat's bouncing around, and then the swivel goes around the tip, fish runs, and then you're gonna break line. So handline it for the last bit, and then start once the swivel's to the tip. Now you work your leader. Now your guy gets off of the pole, or your second guy, he's got the gaff. And what I typically like is the fish is circling to the right. I want my gaff man on the right side of me. So if we're on the starboard side and the pole's here, I'll walk closer to the pole to give my guy space in the back of the boat, and as the fish circles, what I want is for the fish to circle and come right to him, so he has a clear track of the fish as it comes in right there, gaff it. Versus the fish is circling to the right and I'm on this side, and now the fish goes under the boat and he starts to peek his head up, and then the gaff man gotta go get him right away, right? You want to be able to have your gaff man track the fish all the way to the boat, and then stick the gaff in them, and then, you know, obviously come in with the second gaff. Okay, so a tip for your gaff man, to pass along to your gaff man. When in the beginning, what I tell my guys to aim for is to aim for his opposite side pec fin. So you want to hit him right here, right here. Because if you go for his head and you're not familiar with gaffing big fish, a lot of times you or your guy will gaff, and the gaff will just bounce right off of the fish. So tell him to aim for the pec fin, and yeah, you're gonna be into the meat some, but when people ask you if you caught an ahi or not, they don't ask you if the thing was gaffed in the back or in the pec fin or in the head. All that matters is you get the fish on the boat. As you gain more experience, you guys start to gaff more bigger fish, and you get a feel for what it's like to gaff a big fish. You can go and stick them in the head. But when you're starting out, the pec fin is a good target to aim for. And then also, the fish is a lot rounder than it looks when you're looking at it from the top. So I also tell my guys to just reach way around the fish as far as you can, and pull back on the fish and sink that first gaff in deep. As long as you get it from, you know, about there, or you could even get a little bit more back, but as long as you can control the fish's head to start, you should be golden. So, you know, you gaff him in his pec fin, and then have your gaff man immediately get his head up. Because now if the fish kicks, he's just going to kick up toward the surface, and you can still sink your second gaff in him. You don't want, you know, anything from the middle of the fish, the fin and back. You don't want any of that. If it's at that point already, just let the fish circle around one more time, because what you don't want is to stick a gaff in and the fish has his head down, and guarantee he can rip the gaff out of your hands most times. So as soon as you gaff the fish, get his head up, and then you can get your second gaffs in them and stuff like that. So just a couple of tips for gaffing a bigger fish. If you gotta let them circle one more time, let them circle one more time. It's just you as a leader man have to kind of, like, a lot of times I got all my leaders 3 arm spans. So as I leader my fish, I'm also letting my gaff man know, like, okay, I think he gonna do one more circle, or, you know, two more circles, and then I get my final wrap, and I tell him, okay, get ready this one, because as he's reaching over the gaff, that's when I give my leader a big pull to try and help him get the head up so he can get a clean gaff shot on the fish. So when you get the fish on the boat, do your celebrations, and then try and get at least a couple of lines out as soon as possible, because you went all day and now the fish is biting in this half an hour or 1 hour time frame. Now you can try and get the second fish if you want to. You don't got to put everything out. You can just put 1 or 2 lines out, and then I typically, once we boat the fish, I run back up sea, set lines, run back up sea, 2 lines, whatever, and then come back down sea, and then I have my guys take care of the fish, put them in the cooler or whatever, reset all the rest of the lines. You don't gotta put the fish in the box right away. You want to kind of let it cool off on the deck first. So I run back up sea, get a couple lines back out, run back up sea, and then as I come back down sea, again, the ride's nicer. So now we finish setting up our spread, and then take care of the fish. And then most times as I'm running back up sea, or if it's rough, as soon as I turn down sea, if I got guys that are out that day, I call and let them know, you know, hey, I got one bite, or I got the fish over here. Or a lot of times as soon as the fish bites, I'll get on the radio and say, like, you know, hey, I stayed 10 at 20, I got one bite. But if it's somebody like that I'm texting, as soon as I can, I'll text them the information. You always want to be working on that network again. Oh yeah, one more thing. When you boat your ahis, I see this a lot in videos, like, try not to, so you pulling the fish up over the gunnel, and you get him up, and then his body kind of comes over, and then the thing flop down onto your lap or onto the deck. Again, you got hooks and gaffs in the fish's face, and the last thing you want to do after you caught your ahi is freaking get hurt. So our boat is a little easier because our engine box is right there. We just slide them right onto the engine box. But on our old boat, you know, or a good practice is to get the fish's head up and then have your guy walk around, grab his tail. You guys both lift the fish up, put the fish down. You don't want to plop the fish into the boat as much as possible. It's safer that way. Okay, and then kind of the final thing I'll do, once everything's kind of settled down, you're kind of actually back to fishing, is, let's say these are the marks I had, and for whatever reason, this day we got our bite over here. I'll go back and I'll edit this mark, because this mark will be just a number like 720 or whatever. I'll go back and edit this mark to say 10 miles, 75 degrees. So a lot of, if there's a cluster over here, 12 miles, 70 degrees. One of those clusters on our GPS will have the miles and degrees on it. And why I like to do that, so every one of these will have something, right? The reason why I like to do that is the next time that you go out, or when you fish in the future, if you hear the fishes, let's just say in that same area, 10 miles at 75 degrees, and the harbor is here, you can just put your cursor or point your boat straight to that mark. If you got a bunch of X's all over the place, and then you got to kind of get the boat in the area and then zero in on the zone. For me, this is way more efficient. I just go right to that area. Or, you know, if it's in that, let's say it's 12 at 72, at least I know, oh shit, that's kind of close to 10 at 75, and I can kind of make a efficient straight line to the zone of the information that I was told the fish was in. So I think that's all the key points that we need to share with you folks. If I missed anything, you can leave your questions in the comments below. And I hope you guys are having a good ahi season. I know for us here on Oahu, it's been not the best season, but hopefully you guys are out there and getting some. And if this video is helpful, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, guys, have a good one. Aloha.